Hey guys, welcome back to your daily dose. Today we're talking about The Oval, Season 2, Episode 3. So this episode starts off with Victoria in Jason's bedroom. She had just discovered Gene's body under his bed. So she takes a moment because obviously this is a lot to process, but she gathers herself and leaves the room. As soon as she leaves, she runs into the maid. If you could remember at the end of last week's episode, she had phoned downstairs or housekeeping to get someone up there to deal with the foul smell in Jason's room. So just a side note here, how long does it take a body to start to smell? Because it doesn't seem like that long of a time has passed between when Jason actually killed Gene and when they find her body and are noticing this smell. But I digress. So back to the story. Victoria runs into the maid and basically tells the maid that she doesn't need to clean the room because she doesn't want her son to get spoiled and he's on his way back to deal with it himself. The maid double checks, like, are you sure? Because I smell the room. It's really funky. Are you sure you don't want me to go in there and deal with it? And Victoria insists and says no. It also comes up that the maid that was supposed to clean the room had a heart attack and had to be carried out of the residence. So Victoria then starts to feel bad and says that, oh, let's make sure we send her flowers. The maid leaves and then Victoria goes to speak to Hunter. So she's in the room, she's sitting there, and again, she's very distraught. And Hunter's like, what's wrong? So she forces him into Jason's room and makes him look under the bed, and he's also disgusted. And in this moment, they go back and forth as to whose fault it is that he's crazy. And basically you learn that both of them contributed to his behavior by not getting him help when they've seen signs of his perverseness in the past. Because they didn't want to ruin the family's reputation. So yes, Jason is a horrible person, but the parents are partly to blame. Victoria then tells Hunter that he has to deal with the body. He needs to get rid of it. They can't just leave this to anyone else to handle. Hunter says that before they do anything, he needs a drink. So we cut to the next scene and you see Sam walking into Donald's office, and the head of the Secret Service, and Donald is the president's chief of staff. So they go in there and Donald seems really nice here. He's asking about what was the emergency that happened that caused, I guess, the ambulance or the paramedics to be called, and Sam tells him that there was a maid that had a heart attack. So again, this is twice that they've mentioned the maid that could have possibly seen that body under Jason's bed. So that may come up again in the future. So then Sam takes the opportunity to ask Donald about Max and Yuma. Do their wives know? He doesn't, and mentions how he doesn't believe that they actually did what they're being accused of. Donald tells Sam to drop it, leave it alone. He's got it handled. And Sam reluctantly does so. I have a feeling that he's not going to leave that alone. So he steps out of Donald's office and he gets a call, and we're assuming that's him hearing about the plane crash that we saw last episode. So then from there, we get to see Barry and his girlfriend Sharon in the car on the way home from them bailing Barry out of jail. So they're talking about Ruth and how the police did not question Ruth, even though she's like the prime suspect in an ongoing kidnapping investigation. Instead, they decide to arrest Barry, which was this whole situation is just silly. But in any case, they talk about that, and then they also talk about the money that Barry found in his dresser. So Sharon asks Barry where he got that money, and he's like, that's not my money, that's your money. So they go back and forth. He accuses her of getting it from Kareem, which I'm torn about him asking her about that, because yes, it's justified she did have an affair with him, but at the same time, you decided to forgive her and move on, so there needs to be some trust. If she says it's not hers, then it's not hers. In any case, they reluctantly decide to just leave it where it is and maybe, and decide that maybe the money came from their parents or Barry's parents. But if anybody's watching Ruthless, which is the spinoff show from this show, Ruth mentions to another person in the cult that money, she put that money there as kind of a getaway stash. So we may see those two shows collide in a really big way soon. So in the next scene, we see Sam telling the president and the first lady about the plane that was carrying the first lady's mother and their children having to have an emergency stop in Texas. Sam tells them that the children are okay, but the first lady died. Sam also notices the smell coming from Jason's room and offers again to have it cleaned. So now this is another person who notices something odd coming from that boy's room. So now we go to Lily and Bobby. They're outside of the cabin talking about, life in general, and Bobby's telling Lily that he's not a good guy to the wrong people. And Lily then says that she hopes that she stays on his good side. Then we have Diane rolling up. If you can remember a couple episodes ago, Bobby told her how to find him. Diane is reluctant to speak about the whole Max situation in front of Lily because Lily is the chief of staff's wife. But then Lily reveals that Donald actually tried to have her killed, and I guess Diane then starts to trust her, especially since Bobby trusts her. So right before they start to have the conversation, Lily questions Diane, "How do you know Bobby?" But it came off more like Lily was asking as if she was a jealous girlfriend. And I guess Diane then decided that she wanted to squash it, and they had this awkward exchange about Diane and Bobby's sexual history, which was really, really, really strange to me because it was unnecessary. Bobby realizes that Max is actually awake, but he's pretending like he's not. So before they actually jump into the conversation, he pulls the gun on Max's body as he's lying there and tells him that he's safe and to hand over the gun. So Max does, and Diane tries to help him up. So as Diane helps him up, Max takes his hand and puts it around her neck and tries to hold her hostage so he can figure out a way to escape. They all eventually talk him down and got Diane freed of him. And then they get into some conversation about the current circumstances. We had to take you away from the hospital to get you safe. Your wife is, as far as we know right now, safe. We asked her to leave town, that type of thing. So in the next scene, we see Hunter being surprisingly nice to the first lady when he talks to her about her mother's death. But he learns that the first lady actually really doesn't care that her mother died. She's actually kind of happy because she didn't have the best relationship with her mother. Also in that scene, actually when Hunter walks in on her, she seemed to be rethinking the maid having that heart attack again, and she may be making the connection that the maid might have had the heart attack because she saw the body in Jean's room. So that definitely will come up again in future episodes. So also in this conversation between Victoria and Hunter, they decide that they need to put out a statement for the press. So the president decides that he's going to take it upon himself to visit the press secretary, Ellie, to make that happen. So Victoria gets on him a little bit about why he always has to go be with another woman. And he doesn't really give her a straight answer, and he runs off and leaves her to answer the phone. And when she answers the phone, it's Jason. Jason is trying to explain what happened and says that when they landed, some men came and took Gail, and they said that they worked for the grandmother. So Victoria wasn't really bothered by what he said about Gail. She apparently knows where Gail is going. She told Jason that she's sending someone to pick him up right now, and he's coming back to the White House. She also gives him the opportunity to confess, and he doesn't. I'm not really sure what she was expecting to happen with that. So anyway, in the next scene, we see Barry and Sharon finally getting home, and they see Richard acting real stank. His attitude is just real nasty since he learned the truth with what happened with Nancy way back when he was deployed. Yeah, so Richard's in the house by himself, ironing his pants, acting all stank when Barry and Sharon show up. Sharon offers to take over ironing the pants for him, and he was just really rude to her, and she excuses herself and goes up to her room. So Barry and Richard start talking, and Barry asks his father what's wrong. Is he still upset with the mother, and when he's going to get over it? So Richard seems to be really stuck on who the Nancy cheated with when he was deployed. He just wants to know who Picky's father is. He can't let that go. He actually goes as far as to say to Barry, or to apologize to him in advance for the person he's about to see him be to his mother. They also talk about how Barry found Ruth, took her to the police station so that they can question her, and then Ruth then decides to press charges on Barry for kidnapping her. But instead of the police arresting Barry and questioning Ruth, they just arrested Barry and let Ruth go, which makes no sense. So then on the next scene, we see Priscilla struggling to get in touch with Jean. Apparently Jean and her talk all the time. Jean's always calling her about for whatever reason. But she hasn't heard from her for hours. So Priscilla calls the White House for the details and realizes that Jean didn't sign out. And then the person who she was speaking with checked the security cameras, and they realized that Jean went up to the residence and never came down. So then in the next scene, we have Donald and Kyle talking, and Donald's really starting to show his true colors. The first season, he seemed like a really nice guy who was just caught up in the president and the first lady and their parents and all the foolishness that he was forced to deal with. But now he's actually showing that he himself is not that great of a guy. So he and Kyle are talking about Diane and how she's become a nuisance with this whole Max situation. And Donald actually mentions that they should probably kill her. I mean, we saw that coming down the line based on everything that she knows and what she's getting involved with, but I just didn't expect that to come from Donald. In that conversation, Kyle and Donald talk about how Lily is not coming home right now, and so Kyle wants to get keys to the house. You know, they're lovers apparently at some point before in their relationship. Kyle had a key to Donald's house so that he can sneak in and out as he pleases to do what he wants. And Donald took those keys away when he and Lily got married. So now Kyle is working, if you know what I mean, for the keys. In the next scene, we see Ellie finally coming home. If you can remember at the end of last episode, not only did Donald treat her real nasty, the first lady threatened her life. So needless to say, she had a tough day at the office. So she gets home, and just to remind you, she lives with her boyfriend Alan, who also works at the White House. Alan is Donald's assistant. So she gets home and Alan proposes to her. Now, although it's obvious that they have talked about marriage before and this proposal was coming, it seemed like it's happening right now because of all the rumors that are circulating about Ellie being with the president. It just comes off like he proposed to her to kind of control her, so to speak. So she declines and says no, not right now, not with everything that's going on. He gets mad and accuses her of being with the president, and he gets a little angry and a little violent, and she accuses him of being off his meds and having another episode. So in the next scene, the last scene, we get back to Hunter and Victoria in Jason's room. So the last we saw them, they were emptying out that chest that Jason kept his clothes in so they could put the body in there and have someone, presumably Victoria's parents, come and move the body. So they're emptying out the chest, and what do they find in there? A katana sword. It looked like it had blood on it, and so I'm assuming that this is the same sword that was used to kill the president's mistress. which is crazy. The fact that the son was watching his father in that bedroom doing the deed with the mistress, and then was able to chop this lady's head off in the seconds that the father was in the bathroom. So assuming that it's him, I mean, someone could have done it and planted it in his room, but that is highly unlikely considering his past behavior. So we'll see what happens when Jason gets back next episode. So it looks like the plan for it is to try and cover up this murder, get rid of the body to protect the family's reputation. Even in all that, I really hope that the Hunter and Victoria decide to punish Jason somehow, get him some help, lock him up, something, because Gene deserved better than that, and it's crazy. But something tells me that the situation is not going to go away easy. I mean, there are a lot of people that are starting to pick up clues. You have Priscilla realizing that Gene is missing and that she went up to the residence and never came down. You have everybody noticing that smell. You have the maid who actually saw the body and had a heart attack, so hopefully she survives and can tell the story. So there are a lot more loose ends with this scenario than with the mistress scenario, when you only had the president, Victoria, Donald, and Kyle who really knew, and then Yuma and Max pulling at the threads. And even that was supposed to be wrapped up with a bow on it still has some loose ends. So we'll see how all of this turns out. In any case, that's all I have for The Oval Season 2, Episode 3. What did you think of this episode? Drop down in the comment section below and let me know. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. All right, see you next time. Peace.